Hello, my name is Enya, and I am a senior studying history and German through the St. Andrews program. The topic of my research is the Vertriebene and German victimhood refugees in post-war Germany. Thank you to my advisor, Professor Jennifer Gülly, and the Charles Center for supporting me, and I can't wait to get into my research. Vertriebene in German translates to the ones who have fled or the ones who are displaced, but they refer to a specific group of refugees in German history. After World War II, 10 to 12 million ethnic Germans from Eastern Europe were forced to flee to East and West Germany, as indicated in this map. This is one of the most significant migration periods in modern Europe and continues to be a budding field of research. It is also a difficult one because the war and the Holocaust is deeply tied to the experiences of these refugees who faced trauma, but also came from the areas where the worst crimes against humanity were committed. A little bit about my research. I aim to investigate the role of the Vertriebene in collective memories of German victimhood. I wanted to improve my German through this project, so I used English and German sources, and I produced a 12-page research paper written in German. This also serves as a preliminary research project for my dissertation at St. Andrews this year, where I will be studying these refugees during the period of Ostpolitik in the 1970s. And this is the first page of my paper. To understand the Vertriebene along with German victimhood, it is useful to understand this as periods of change. This first slide will show collective memories of the war in general, and the next slide will fit the Vertriebene into these eras. In the early post-war period, there is a general reluctance to discuss the Holocaust. Surveys at the time show that many Germans felt that they had suffered from Allied bombings and the violence of Soviet troops. In the late 1950s, many German children with parents in the war generation began wondering what their parents were doing during the war, and this period is called Vergangenheitsbewältigung, and many Germans start having a critical view of the Nazi period. After the Cold War ends and Germany is reunited, there is greater nuance and understanding in public and also among academics that Germans were perpetrators, but many experienced suffering and trauma from the war and before the war. And during this time, many monuments and museums are built during this period for reconciliation. There's, of course, much more nuance to this topic, and I encourage you to explore this further on your own. And now to fit the experiences of the Vertriebene into this history, we can also see this in these three general periods. In the early post-war period, the Vertriebene are incorporated as victims in narratives of German victimhood, sometimes in propaganda. For example, Robert Mueller argues that the Vertriebene symbolize the suffering of the whole of West Germany at a state level. Second, during the period of coping with the past, it becomes unacceptable to sympathize with the Vertriebene very quickly. And on the left, you can see a poster that says, Wir verzeichnen auf Auschwitz, which means we renounce Auschwitz. And this is actually an anti-Vertriebene rally in 1967. And lastly, after the Berlin Wall falls, there's much more open discussion and focus on the specific Vertriebene experiences. There's greater nuance in understanding guilt and trauma, and this is, of course, a continuing project. And lastly, I wanted to highlight the Documentation Center for Displacement, Expulsion, and Reconciliation, which opened in Berlin in 2021. There was a lot of controversy about it at first, because it has several East European countries feared that this was an attempt to rewrite history. But the museum, after drafts and negotiations, the museum now has an interesting design choice where it's a thematic focus, where it understands forced migration as a global, broader phenomenon outside of just the Vertriebene history. I visited the center recently and will likely be back for a few more times for research as I continue my project. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.